The noose seems to be tightening around the neck of good old JR, as Jeremy Wendell had all the evidence of JR's lawbreaking handed over to his mortal enemy, Cliff Barnes. Cliff is on something of a winning streak, too, with a budding new relationship with Afton Cooper and a reunification with his mother. On the other end, Sue Ellen, having learned that her sister Kristen has given birth to JR's second son, has made the decision to leave him. And that decision was made much easier last episode when Dusty Farlow returned to her life. JR now finds himself backed into a corner. JR hits the mattresses as he suspects blowback from the scandalous newspaper articles to be severe. He does take time to mollify Ellie, though, and assure her that he has it under control. Sue Ellen, Dusty, and Clayton plot to collect John Ross from South Fork once JR is away in Austin. Clayton thinks if JR is found guilty, no court in Texas would entertain giving him custody. JR tries to bribe his way into finding out what the committee has on him, but Senator Harbin tells him that the heat from the feds is just too great. If things go against JR in the hearing, the feds are likely to step up next and indict him federally. JR threatens the senator on the way out, which seems like a dumb move on JR's part. Wouldn't that give the senator more incentive to put JR away, to ensure that JR doesn't come after him? No sooner than JR gives Luella the order to get Claude Brown out of the country than she's also served a subpoena. You could say it's getting pretty serious. Leslie Stewart meets with Jeremy Wendell. She says the Ewing oil reputation is about to be a disaster not even she can save, so she's looking for a lifeboat in the form of Westar Oil. Jeremy says he can help her if the evidence shows what she says it does. He's positively giddy at the prospect of JR going away, but it also helps Westar if Ewing Oil's charter is revoked. Things don't go as planned in Operation Todd Extraction, as JR is there waiting as Sue Ellen tries to abscond with John Ross in tow. He has her thrown off South Fork for her insolence. Pamela tries to intervene and catches some crossfire from JR as he calls her mom a drunken slut and threatens her too. As if that's not bad enough, Kristen shows up to shake JR down for even more money.
Think of how they'd feel if they read about a paternity suit on top of everything else. Oh, and give my love to Sue Ellen.
Punk and Ray share a drink at lunch. Punk says Ray sure was in over his head, but he stuck it out through the deal, and as a reward, the other guys want to let Ray buy in for a cool $3 million. After all, Punk says, it'll show everyone that Ray's not just some ranch foreman, and it would make Jock proud. So if you wanted someone to blame for Season 5 Ray Krebbs, blame Punk. JR's situation appears even more dire as defense attorneys around Texas brush him off, given that there's no way to prepare a defense without a discovery process, which JR is not entitled to since it's not a criminal trial. I'm still not entirely sure what kind of trial this is. If it's for the Ewing charter, Bobby seems awfully nonchalant about this. Ray can't get in touch with Donna to get access to his allowance, so he unilaterally takes the money out of their joint account to make the Punk deal. The bank calls Donna later to confirm, drawing some concern from Dave Culver. At Cliff's apartment, Cliff passes out on Afton, which was all part of the plan. JR and his personal police thug Harry McSween come in and take pictures of all the evidence Cliff has stowed away. Oh, Afton. The betrayal. Totally thought she was on the up and up. I can fix her. Things don't go well on day one of the JR hearing, despite the presence of his brother, Bobby. There's no I in recusal Ewing. The cartel testifies that they suspected JR had something to do with the revolution, when JR invited them over to his office right as it happened. Yeah, that is pretty suspicious. Claude Brown also testifies that he coordinated the counter-revolution with money from JR. JR's attorney tries to spin it that Claude is only testifying against JR because he got immunity. But that's not how that works. And the next reasonable question would be, immunity for doing what? Bad form there. Thus continuing the trend of every lawyer in Texas being Lionel Hutz with a big belt buckle. Leslie Stewart is the surprise witness. She tells the committee that she records everything, and it is moderately damning for JR as he admits on tape to overthrowing the government.
Hell yes, I was behind it. After all, everybody thinks I was anyway.
Although there is quite a bit of wiggle room in there to demonstrate he was just running game on Leslie. JR gets a chance to rebut. His explanation is that he gave Claude Brown gift money for the people of Southeast Asia so that they wouldn't think that Americans were just colonizers. It's not his fault that Claude didn't understand the assignment. He does confirm that he was just lying to Leslie to get her into bed. JR's surprise witness is James Hong as the ambassador. Because of course it's James Hong, the other guy was busy on Happy Days. The ambassador says that the money JR sent has all gone to build hospitals and puppy orphanages. Not for war. Given that, the committee votes to dismiss all charges and name May 1st JR Ewing Day, with free bourbon and branch till 7 p.m., and a day off for all those pretty little secretaries. Cliff accuses Bobby of double-crossing him and linking the evidence to JR. Cliff threatens to go to the Senate Ethics Committee, but Bobby asks him to come out to South Fork first so they can talk about it. 2 episodes ago, Bobby wasn't even that high on being a senator anyway, so I'm not sure why he'd even want to fight it. A celebratory JR fires Luella for not getting Claude Brown out of the country on time. He also plays hardball with Kristen, telling her he could still have her prosecuted for shooting him. Or he could just have a couple of good old boys rough her up. Sue Ellen comes by the store to enlist Pamela's help in getting John Ross out of South Fork. JR drops by Leslie's apartment and tells her no hard feelings. He would have double-crossed her if things were reversed. Leslie and JR finally get together based on their mutual admiration of sliminess. After all that, they both agree that the sex was meh, and Leslie decides to clear out of town. At her hotel room, a frustrated Kristen, who is apparently high on oranges, tells someone on the phone that the shakedown didn't work. She tells whoever it is that JR is gonna pay. JR returns home to greet his son and finds out that Pamela has taken John Ross off South Fork. He calls his hired goons to have her brought in. Cliff does arrive after dark and sees a woman floating face down in the pool. He dives in and turns her over, only to find out she's dead, and he sees JR standing on the balcony overhead holding a drink. And we're out. A full year after the biggest cliffhanger in television history to that point, the Dallas writers found themselves with the impossible task of trying to follow up for this season's finale. Their interesting and, quite frankly, ingenious way out of it was not only to create a whodunit, but a who was it done to. And it could have been a handful of women. Did he have Pamela tracked down and killed for kidnapping John Ross? Did he go above her head and go after Sue Ellen for causing all this? Did Lucy come home and get into a fight with JR about Mitch? Was JR really that forgiving about Leslie Stewart, or was he just setting her mind at ease before striking? Did Kristen try something and things went sideways? Or maybe Luella came to get her job back and met with an unfortunate accident. This really is the reverse of last season's cliffhanger, where there were a dozen people who had a motive to shoot JR. In this case, though, there were half a dozen women that JR had the motivation to drown. Of course, they didn't quite reach the exalted heights of who shot JR, but it is still an intriguing mystery in its own right, marred only by the camera work catching a little bit too much of the woman in the pool, and the law of economy of characters ruling out several of the big names. And thus draws an end to a mostly uneven season. Things got off to a rocky start thanks to a strike and Larry Hagman wisely holding out for more money to come back. I'm sure there were almost daily revisions based upon where they thought the characters might go. The other confounding factor was the health of Jim Davis, who died before the final episodes aired. Many commenters mentioned that he looked like he was in ill health in most of his late season scenes. David Jacobs had written scenes for Chalk in season 5, but it was very apparent that Chalk wasn't going to be the presence he once was. And that also draws a clear dividing line from the show as it started to the various incarnations it would take over the course of the next decade. Davis's death forced the show to become something different than it was. Its characters focused on other things besides his legacy. Sometimes that leads to an intriguing premise, and sometimes it doesn't. But the season does round out strongly after a clunky middle. The writers have really set the table for storylines next season, as nearly everyone will have some kind of major reckoning to deal with. And it's all left up in the air here.